Update tonight to a story we first reported on Friday. The Columbus County Board of Elections is now considering a revised plan for early voting sites.
After talking about eliminating 4 of the 5 sites across the county, the board is now looking at keeping 3 of the 5 open for the November midterm elections. Tonight, though, some voters said that is not enough. WECT's Ariana Bertolotti heard feedback tonight from the public about that plan.
Ariana, what did you hear from the crowd as the board talked about this?
Yeah, Fran, the room was packed. More than 100 people showed up, and many standing along the back walls. During the public comment, speakers said cutting sites makes it harder for people to vote, especially those with limited transportation, long work hours, or disabilities. Speakers said fewer early voting locations would hit some communities harder than others, including voters in lower income areas. Some accuse the board of making access worse for Black, Hispanic, and women voters. Board Chair Jillian McPherson Edge said consolidating sites would help the office use staff more effectively, reduce operational strain, and save taxpayer dollars. But others said the county budgeted for 5 sites and they want to keep all 5 open.
It is the county's duty, the county commissioner's duty, to provide the money for elections, and they did that this year. The county provided money for 5 sites. We would be having a different conversation if the county said we don't have money for you to have 5 sites, but that didn't happen. The county said you can have these 5 sites, so there's really no financial reason for them to make this cut.
Now, in a response to the number of people voting at sites other than the Board of Elections office, Board Chair Jillian McPherson Edge said in a statement sent to WECT on Friday, quote, "We are also reviewing trends across multiple election cycles, not just a single election. While the combined total of the satellite sites may exceed the Board of Elections office in some elections, the question before us is whether maintaining 5 separate early voting locations for the entire voting period remains the most efficient and fiscally responsible model moving forward." Tonight's discussion was a proposal only. The board says it plans to vote at its next meeting on June 29th.
Well, Ariana, is the entire Board of Elections unified on this plan now to go from 5 to 3?
Not completely, John. One board member said the public raised valid concerns and that keeping all 5 sites would better meet the community's needs.
And we'll find out what they decide later on this month when the board meets once again.
Yep.
All right, Ariana, appreciate the update. Thanks.